السلام عليكم. Welcome back to another episode of Quran in English. My name is Ahmed, and I'm happy to take you on the last section of chapter Surah Hud, which was one of the messengers, prophets that were mentioned in this chapter so far. Many were mentioned. All right, before I get into the last verses, I must always say that I'm not an Arabic scholar nor a Quranic scholar. I've not studied the Arabic language beyond school, and I have not studied the Quran, and I'm actually this is my first journey through the Quran, so I'm sharing my learning with you in the hopes that you might learn something. But also, if you see something that you disagree with or have a different perspective on, please feel free to drop a message or a comment, and I will happily learn from you as well. Before we begin, we must always say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. And off we go.
وأما الذين سعدوا ففي الجنة خالدين فيها ما دامت السماوات والأرض إلا ما شاء ربك عطاء غير مجذوذ.
So to understand this verse, we kind of have to go back a couple of verses. Previously, we were talking about the day of judgment, the day that nobody will speak to anybody except by God's permission. So some souls themselves will talk to each other, but most will not speak to each other. And then there will be two groups. There will be those who are in despair and those who are in happiness. And those who are in despair go to a fire that's hell, that they'll be sighing and wailing in it forever. And then we came across something interesting that repeats in this next verse, so I'm not going to take it from the previous verse. But those that are glad will be in paradise, abiding in it forever, as long as the heavens and the earth remain. Which is what was said over here, as long as the heavens and the earth remain, which I found very interesting last week, because the way that I would describe forever, I feel like there are several stages of forever. One forever is like, for the rest of my life, forever I'm going to be a boy, for example. That's not to say that what happens after my death. It just says, until the point of my death, forever I'll be a boy. For all of my life, forever. So forever doesn't necessarily mean without an end, is what I'm saying. And that's kind of what I get from here. Forever in it, Khalidin means forever, by the way. I don't know why it's not Khalidin. They're just translating it to abiding, but Khalidin means that they're forever in it. As long as there remains a heaven and an earth. And then it says, except what your Lord wills. So there are also exceptions to forever based off of what God wants. Which is interesting. And then it says that this is them being in heaven. Paradise is a given that has no limits. Given without interruption, without end, without a limit. Yeah. Beautiful.
ألا تك في مرية مما يعبد هؤلاء ما يعبدون إلا كما يعبد آباؤهم من قبل وإنا لموفوهم نصيبهم غير منقوص.
And then it jumps into this topic, which I kind of struggle with. It says, so do not be in doubt about what those people worship. They do not worship except what has been worshipped by their forefathers from before. And indeed, we are rewarding them, giving them their share. We're paying them in their share without it being diminished. Is it the same? No, it's a different word. Manqud. See here, manqud, without being diminished. Interrupted. We'll give them their share without being diminished. Like the comparison is, the Quran is saying there'll be a day of judgment. Some will go to hell and be despair. Some will go to hell in despair, and some will go to heaven in happiness and holiness and joy. And as a result, you shouldn't be in doubt. So do not fala taku. So do not be in doubt about what these people worship. Which I would struggle, because I'm like, how does the statements prior help me know not to doubt? I mean, if you believe it to be true, and you know that's happening, then I don't need those statements to know that they're doubting, is my argument. I might be overcomplicating it. Anyway, don't be in doubt about what these polytheists, it doesn't say polytheists, about what those worship. We know that they're polytheists. We know that they have a variety, because the whole chapter has been talking about all the messengers and the prophets, which it actually doesn't mention if they were messengers or prophet. It just says, I guess they are messengers. I guess all prophets are messengers, but not all messengers are prophets. I think that's correct. I've heard it the other way around. I've heard it explained to me that all messengers are prophets, but not all prophets are messengers. And I don't think that makes sense, because a prophecy is also a message. Anyway, complicating. It's neither here nor there. We're not talking about it. So well, what do we call them? I want to call them messengers. Hud, Noah, Saleh, Shu'aib, Musa. Interesting enough, they don't talk about Jesus in this chapter. I mean, obviously we've covered Jesus quite thoroughly in the previous chapters. Ali Imran and Maryam, I believe. Did we not cover Maryam in the beginning? What is... It must be in Ali Imran. Anyway. Whew, okay. Sorry, my brain is a little bit frazzled-dazzled today. Okay, I'm back to Sayyidina Musa, Moses. Well, not for very briefly. We're not going to cover it too much.
ولقد آتينا موسى الكتاب فاختلف فيه ولولا كلمة سبقت من ربك لقضي بينهم وإنهم لفي شك منه مريب.
Here's an interesting thought that I had today. And this talks about the whole book. Anyway, it says, and verily we gave Moses the book. Now, it's very interesting that we're using this specific keyword. The keyword al-kitab often refers to the Quran, the Injil, and the Torah. So the book that was given to Moses was the Torah. And in other parts of the Quran, it says هذا الكتاب لا ريب فيه, which means this book has no error in it. So why do we assume it's only the Quran that has no error in it? Okay, I'm probably asking a very, very stupid question. I kind of want to allow me to go on this. هذا الكتاب لا ريب فيه. Copy. Yeah, ignore my Google searching. It's faster for me to سورة البقرة آية رقم 2. It's chapter 2. This is how I find things. Why is it starting from chapter 1? Okay. So there you go. Chapter 2, verse 2. This book, there is no doubt about it, a guide for those mindful. And actually it says ذلك الكتاب, that book, not this book, not this is the book, that book. I need to do some research because I've always been under the impression and idea and understanding that it was only the Quran that has no errors. Because the Bible changes, for example. I don't know anything about the Torah. Anyway. What it says, we gave Moses the book, but differences arose in it. And again, here's where that brings back the idea that there's no error in it. The corruption that I've seen, for instance, in the Muslim community comes in the understanding of the book, not in the words of the book. And that's, I feel like, what is being said here. That the book was given by Moses, and then they differed in its did they believe it? Did they not believe it? Did they agree with it? Did they not agree with it? It didn't feel like that the words were altered. But this is a topic that I have to kind of look into a little bit more. I will do some research, I think, and do some digging on my own. Anyway, and if it was not for a word that preceded it from your Lord, then it would have surely been settled at once between them. You know, if God had wanted, there would be no disagreements and there would be no issues. But indeed, they are surely in doubt concerning it and very suspicious of it. They are truly in alarming doubt about it. They're in doubt in it. ومنه مريب إنهم لفي شك منه مريب. They're in an alarming doubt about it. They're in a suspicious doubt about it. Interesting. Yeah, and so there's a kind of a theme that we see in this specific chapter that is very, very strong, and it's the believers versus the non-believers. And it feels like it's not two believers arguing about the meaning of the words. I feel like it's talking about believers arguing with non-believers that we should follow this, no, we shouldn't follow this, and there's a doubt. The non-believers doubt, the believers don't doubt. And that's kind of the lesson. And why did I bring that up? There's going to be a point a bit later down the line.
وَإِنَّ كُلًّا لَمَّا لَيُوَفِّيَنَّهُمْ رَبُّكَ أَعْمَالَهُمْ إِنَّهُ بِمَا يَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرٌ.
Indeed, to each, when we pay them in full, when God pays them in full for their deeds, indeed He is of what they do all aware. Yeah, everybody will get what they deserve.
فاستقم كما أمرت ومن تاب معك ولا تطغوا إنه بما تعملون بصير.
Sometimes I feel like these verses are talking to me directly. Come on. All right, it's that's what I get for saying me directly. No, shoe fly, don't bother me. So stand firm as you are commanded, and those who turn repentance with you, and do not transgress. Indeed, He is of what you do, all seeing. I have been struggling with something myself. I have been struggling with, let's just call it sin. And it's a sin that I don't mean to do. And it's a sin that is made super easy and super convenient for me, that I have to do nothing for it, and it's there. And I've been struggling with it for quite some time. I don't know if this helps me, but the command is do not transgress. Because God sees what you do, which is very ironic for me right now. Because I think my sin is tied to seeing. It's just a personal. Sometimes you feel like the book is talking to you, right? And that's the beauty of the Quran.
ولا تركنوا إلى الذين ظلموا فتمسكم النار وما لكم من دون الله من أولياء ثم لا تنصرون.
There's this little fruit fly that is trying me here. Go, fruit fly, don't bother me. This verse is very interesting. It is very, very, very interesting. Also, something that I'm struggling with lately. And it's kind of like the main lesson of these chapters of these verses. At least when it came to Noah and his son. For me, that was a very important point. It says, and do not go towards, be compassionate for, feel for, think about those who do wrong. So those who do wrong, and those who have wronged you, or those who have chosen disbelief, or those who have chosen not to be good people, or chosen not to be believers, don't lean towards them. And I think this also means in thought. Do not incline towards them. Why not? Because lest it touch you the fire. And it's saying that the more you lean towards these people, the more you will be touched by the fire that they're heading for. And it's an interesting expression, right? Because leaning towards them isn't a sin. Like Noah caring about his son isn't a sin, isn't a bad thing, isn't it something that he shouldn't do? But the lesson here is that leaning towards them somehow, metaphorically, the fire touches you. Because you put your heart in somebody else, and then that person gets burned, and therefore you suffer with them. I don't know if anybody else reads this the way that I do, but it says, do not incline towards those who are wrong, so lest the fire touches you. And then there's no one beside God in any protectors, and then you will not be victorious. You will not be helped. I take this as don't lean towards those who do wrong. Even they might be good people. They might be good people down the line, and they might not go to the hellfire. Maybe they're going to be saved. Maybe they have their own journey. But the lesson that I got was do not lean towards them. And in fact, protect your mind and protect your heart from them. And make a distinction between those who believe and are doing good and those who don't believe and are not doing good. And if they don't believe and they're not doing good, stay away. Mentally, physically, emotionally, stay away. Otherwise, the fire will touch you. This is a very tough lesson to learn, specifically for people who are like bleeding hearts. And I don't know, sometimes I'm bleeding heart, sometimes I'm not. It's hard to describe. But yeah, like when you have like a friendship for a very long time and then you find out that this person is not good, has not been good to you. You have to kind of stop leaning. Otherwise, you're going to get burned. Let them go for your sake. What they do for their own sake is their own responsibility. And that's not to say, like, if somebody wronged you in the past and is trying to do better, shut the door at them. That's not what we're saying in any way, shape, or form. Anyone that's trying to believe and trying to do better and trying to find the right path, absolutely help them, absolutely welcome them, absolutely support them. But those who have made it clear that they do not care for doing the right thing, let them go. Otherwise, you're going to get hurt. Metaphorically, you will be touched by fire, and I don't know if there's a literal translation for it.
وأقم الصلاة طرفي النهار وزلفا من الليل إن الحسنات يذهبن السيئات ذلك ذكرى للذاكرين.
Now this is a beautiful verse. Okay, several things are being said here. First, it says, and establish prayer and go to pray at two ends of the day and as the night approaches. In the early part of the night. So, prayer is the number of prayers that one does is a very interesting number. Because according to the Jews, you pray 3 times a day. According to the Muslims, you pray 5 times a day. According to the Quran, as far as I can see, there's this reference suggesting that there are 3 prayers. Like here it's being asked to do 3 prayers. The reason why we pray 5 times is because of the Prophet Muhammad, and we follow the Prophet Muhammad, and that's why it is important to pray 5 times a day. But as far as I can see from the requirement of the Quran, and then it says these 3. So 2 ends of the day and early part of the night. And then there's another verse that says, and be careful of the middle prayer. And again, it works when there's 3, because the middle prayer is something that you can be careful of. It also works when there's 5, because then there's still a middle prayer. But as far as I can see, the Quran only asks us to pray 3 times, whereas the Prophet asked us to pray 5 times. And we have been asked to follow the Prophet. So 5 also includes 3. So doing it as the Prophet suggested also covers the minimum requirement from the Quran. However, there's always that like interesting, why did the Jews pray 3 times? Why did the Prophet Muhammad say 5 times? Why does the Quran only kind of indicate 3 times? These are questions that are very valid for me. And I'm very curious about. And then it says something very interesting. Indeed, good deeds remove the bad deeds. And that is a reminder for those who remember. And that's kind of like as I was thinking of my sin, and there's a specific verse in the Quran in Surah Al-Zilzal that says, sometimes I struggle to remember it unless I read the whole thing. وَمَنْ فَعَلَ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ وَمَنْ فَعَلَ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَهُ, which means, and whoever does an atom of a bad deed shall see. And so I think of like, okay, so I'm committing this sin. I'm definitely going to get the punishment for it. Well, there is an exception. Indeed, good deeds remove the evil deeds. That is a reminder for those who remember. Which ties into the very first words you hear in the Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, which means in the name of God who's most merciful and whose mercy is most encompassing. And sometimes it feels like the Quran is very strict, and sometimes it feels like, like believe, succeed, don't believe, go to hell, and it's such a painful, strict, harsh. But then you realize that mercy and forgiveness and repentance are always available. And they will always be given. And that doing good will undo the bad, will remove the bad. And here saying remove the bad, I think it's kind of, it's beautiful. It's like you start by thinking, why is God so strict? This is so difficult. This is so hellish. This is so extreme. And then you get the reprieve, and then you get the breathing, and then you get the repentance, and then you get the forgiveness, and then you get the mercy, and then you go, oh, okay, this makes sense. God is first strict, then merciful. And his mercy supersedes his strictness, which is very beautiful. Interesting.
اصبر فإن الله لا يضيع أجر المحسنين.
And be patient, for indeed God does not waste the reward of the ones who do good, the good doers.
لولا كان من القرون من قبلكم أولو بقية ينهون عن الفساد في الأرض إلا قليلا ممن أنجينا منهم واتبع الذين ظلموا ما أترفوا فيه وكانوا مجرمين.
What? Don't. Okay, cool. All right. So if it was not for, if it had not been for the generations or the centuries or the peoples from before you, possessing a remnant, forbidding on corruption. So like ulu baqiyatan, if they had a few people, yeah. So had it not been for the centuries from before you to possess a remnant forbidding about corruption in the land, and the people who forbid corruption in the land were except for a few of them, of which we had saved from among them. So from the people that were before you, if they had done good, if there had been a group of people that did good, enough people that did good, and again it says that we saved those specific people. If only there had been among the destroyed peoples virtuous individuals who forbade corruption in the land, other than the few we saved from the torment. It feels like a run-on sentence. It's driving me crazy. There's so many thoughts within it. So, if it had only been for those few that had saved the land, if they weren't a few, and because we saved the few, oh my God. It's such a hard thing to understand. Let's take the second verse and then you'll kind of see. Because the second verse says the opposite. But those who did wrong followed the luxury they were given in it, and they were criminals. But the wrongers pursued their worldly pleasures, becoming wicked. So it's kind of saying, if only there had been more people doing good. And then it says those that were doing good were very few and we saved them. And the reality is most people did wrong and they abused the land and abused the stream. And it here kind of feels like the point of this chapter. The point of this chapter is we saw time and time again, messenger sends to people, warning, people don't listen, people die. It feels like it's a recurring process. For me, it feels like a purification process, a purification of humanity. And we see this the most strikingly in Noah, because that seemed to affect the most area. I thought it was a worldly flood. I don't have anything to suggest that it was a worldly flood, but I just had this impression that the world flooded over. And the main message that I'm trying to say is that it seems that time and time again, God's guidance is sent down, people are corrupt and spreading corruption in the earth, and God purges the earth of the non-believers. Which kind of feels like it's going to happen one more time, especially if you take a look around the earth and see people, those who did wrong are following the luxuries they were given. destroying the earth, not giving medicine to those who need it, stealing wealth to themselves, destroying the earth for resources. Yeah, it's very easy to see that this is happening once more, which means that likely what the Quran is telling us, that a messenger and a reckoning is due. Anyway, it talks about the why a little bit more soon.
وما كان ربك ليهلك القرى بظلم وأهلها مصلحون.
And then the clarification is always there. And it was not for God to destroy these cities unjustly, while its people were doing good. And we saw this in Yunus, actually. Yunus's people were the only people that eventually listened to him, which is ironic, because Yunus is the only messenger that didn't listen to so we know the story of Yunus. If you kind of go in the previous chapters, it's pretty cool. Yunus is the only messenger that we know of, at least that has been referenced, that refused the calling, that was angry with his people and walked away and didn't listen to his people. But Yunus is also the only example given in the previous chapter of a people that his people averted the destruction that was coming to them because they reformed and they did good. That's ironic. That's super ironic. That's super cool as well. It's a personal point that makes me happy. I'm not going to explain too much, but I have to talk to my mom. And again, so the main message is that God did not punish those people unjustly while its people were good. If they were good, they weren't going to get punished. And those that were doing good got saved. It's kind of the main message.
ولو شاء ربك لجعل الناس أمة واحدة ولا يزالون مختلفين.
And here kind of the main point. And if God had willed, then he would have made people one community. But they still differ. They still differ. I don't know why it's not translating it simply. And again, believers, non-believers, that's the main point. You either believe or you don't believe, and those that don't believe are going to suffer, and those that do believe are going to get their reward eventually.
إلا من رحم ربك ولذلك خلقهم وتمت كلمة ربك لأملأن جهنم من الجنة والناس أجمعين.
Interesting phrasing. Let's go to the previous verse. It said, and if it had willed from your God, it would have been one community, but they still differ, except whom God has bestowed mercy upon. And that's kind of like an interesting conundrum. I've had this philosophical argument many, many times. The Quran says many times, and it's very straightforward, and it's very straight, that God, through his mercy, allows us to believe. Which means I want to say some grand things that are like wild in my head, but it's like it feels like we all at some point become non-believers. But I don't know if that's true. There must be some people that have been believers their whole life. I think. I'm not sure. There must be. Anyway, the main message here is that we believe through God's mercy, and it's God who decides who gets to believe and who doesn't get to believe, which then brings in the argument of free will. If you don't have free will and God says who's going to believe, so why should I bother? I don't have an answer to that. I just know that God's mercy is tied to those that differ in being one community, and the one community is those who believe and those who do good and be righteous. But God doesn't want us to all do that, and that we will still differ, except who God has bestowed His mercy upon. And then it says, and for that He created them. He created humans for this reason, for this mercy, for this belief, for this separation in humanity, for this difference. And that's why I think it's like a purification process. It feels like since the fall of Adam and Eve, since Cain and Abel, since the very beginning, God has been saying, believers, good, non-believers, bad. And God has been dishing out justice in a variety of formats and purging the non-believers and purging the non-believers and purging the non-believers, which means I feel like there is going to be one more purge. But I don't know enough about that. But this is kind of the whole point of life. The whole point of life is, do you believe, do you receive God's mercy, or do you not? And then it says, and it has been fulfilled, the word of your Lord. Surely I will fill hell with the jinn and with men altogether. Oh, interesting. It's going to be one hell for jinn and people. Very curious. And that's kind of what it feels like. It feels like God's angry, right? And that this whole life that we've been living as the fall from Adam and Eve, we were born into disgrace. We were born into this earth because we were born into a world that became as a choice of Adam and Eve. A world where we chose sin and invited it into ourselves, and it was passed down to us from Adam and Eve, and sin was within us. And we were not, in a way, what God wanted, which is kind of... then you have the argument of, if God is all-powerful, then how can He create something that He doesn't want? Maybe God created Adam and Eve with the idea that we were going to fall to sin, and we were going to be in His disgrace, his poor graces, and that through this process of life, we either come back into His grace, come back into His mercy, receive the mercy from God, or do not. And through that process, the human in heaven becomes complete. Becomes the way that... So God created human with the susceptibility to sin, knowing that humans were going to fall to sin and begin life. And the whole point of it is, can we get back to mercy? Can we get back to heaven? And so that God will purge the part of us that is susceptible to sin. And so that when we do return to heaven, we are permanent residents of it, because we are immune to sin, because we made the choice to believe and do good despite being born in sin. Whew. Okay, we got the lesson out. Sorry, it's a difficult topic, and my brain is not working at full cylinders today. But that's why it says, and it will be fulfilled the word of your Lord, I will fill hell with jinn and men. It feels angry. It feels like I will burn that part of you, you know? Yeah. But it's kind of like an immune system attacking a virus within the body. It's very aggressive. Whew. And here we see the point.
وكلا نقص عليك من أنباء الرسل ما نثبت به فؤادك وجاءك في هذه الحق وموعظة وذكرى للمؤمنين.
And thus we relate to you of the news of the messengers. They are messengers. They are all messengers. I was right. Very interesting. Not all of them were prophets, but all of them were messengers. I'm certain of it. Anyway, I believe that no, let's not get into the messengers. Thus we tell you the news of the messengers, that we make firm with it your heart. So the point of these things are, and again, I believe that there will be another messenger coming after the Prophet Muhammad, and this is kind of addressing him, saying that we relate the stories and the news of these messengers so that we may make firm with it your heart, and that we can help you understand the truth. And this seems to be also like we see this as a theme with the Prophet Muhammad in other parts in the Quran. We read the last 25 chapters, or 25 chapters, I want to say, during Ramadan, maybe less. And in those verses, we do see a lot of times that the Prophet Muhammad's heart wavered and had doubt, and the Quran and God revealed verses that kind of reinstilled faith in the Prophet Muhammad's heart. And I feel like this is what these verses are being done. These verses specifically are being addressing the messenger himself, so that their heart can be reassured and still. And it has come to you in it this truth, which again, that's the power of the Quran. There's so many, being a human, you get confused back and forth, what's right, what's wrong, who's wrong, did he upset me, did I upset him, there's so much confusion in the reality in the world, but this comes as truth, and this is fixed, and you can't change it, and as a warning and a reminder for the believers. So it's not just for the messenger, but it's a warning and a reminder for the believers. Yeah, and again, I feel like it's telling us that there's going to be another reckoning. And I'm not talking about the Day of Judgment. I'm talking about an earthly judgment, an earthly something. That's why it's a warning, and that's why it's a reminder. Yeah, I like a warning instead of admonition, because I'm not familiar with the term admonition, but I'm familiar with the warning.
وقل للذين لا يؤمنون اعملوا على مكانتكم إنا عاملون.
And tell to those who don't believe, again, the two groups, believe, don't believe. Tell those who don't believe, do according to your position, do what you're going to do. Indeed, we are also doing. You do you, and we do us. Cool, great, thanks.
وانتظروا إنا منتظرون.
And you wait, and we'll wait. It's kind of like, we'll see. Wait, no rush. What's going to happen, the truth will come out. The truth always does.
ولله غيب السماوات والأرض وإليه يرجع الأمر كله فاعبده وتوكل عليه وما ربك بغافل عما تعملون.
And for God is the unknown of the heavens and the earth, and to him you will the matter will be returned in its entirety. So worship him and put your trust upon him, and your Lord is not unaware of what you do. Yeah. Pretty clear, pretty straightforward. Yeah. I trust God. Tawakkaltu alayki ya Rabbi. All right. Thank you for joining me. This was fantastic. Ooh, we get into Yusuf next. Oh, that's an interesting story. I believe Yusuf. Oh, Maryam is 19. Okay, I was confused. I had read it some other time. I believe Yusuf is the one about the ripped shirt. It's a very spicy one, and I actually really enjoy that story. So I'm really excited to kick things off with you on the next episode. As usual, we always end with Sadaq Allah al-Ali al-Azim. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you. This episode started out a bit slow and confusing and ended strong. Which I suppose means you just got to have some faith and that things will kind of come out the way that they're supposed to. But yeah, I feel a lot better at the end of the episode than I did at the beginning of it. As I always do with the Quran, but somehow I always forget. Anyway, thank you for watching. I love you. I appreciate you. Catch you next time. Ma salama. Bye.